What's up, everyone? Today I'm going to do like a short little two-part thing, just because not everything is going to be applicable and everything else. That will make sense, I swear, in a little bit. More or less, it's about your generator. This is going to be something that in the beginning of the season, whether it be hurricane season, for me, winter, bad storm, something that you should always check before that occasion occurs, and how to be prepared to use it, or how to be prepared to use it if it does need to be used. So first things first, I've had this before on my channel. It's running. The guy brought it back for a tune-up. Here we are, tuned up. Having said that, we are going to be using it as kind of a test case for our purpose. So very first thing that you're going to want to look at is the oil. This one in particular has an oil cutoff, so technically it shouldn't run without oil. Just in case, you do always want to check the oil. And naturally, I don't have a rag right now, but do your normal oil checking procedure. Don't just do what I did, like, oh look, it's full. No, wipe it up, do it right, move forward. So the oil's clean and full. Now what do you check? Here's the thing. If you listened to the previous video, which if you haven't, on how to store your generator, watch that now. But if you didn't, or even did, you're always going to want to check your fuel line. Now, if you left fuel in your tank for a long period of time, more likely than not, this is also going to be full of fuel. The ethanol, if you've been using ethanol fuel, is going to over time degrade this fuel line, as well as if you have a grommet like this, or even other types, the disposable pieces, let's call them, will wear out. So you want to check, is it loose, is it leaking? There is fuel in here. When you turn it on, is it loose, is it leaking? Is the line cracked? Is it good condition? If it was a clear fuel filter, is the fuel clean? Does the fuel filter have sediment in it? Stuff like that. So you want to check that. Because trust me, there's nothing worse, especially in certain setups. The fuel can actually drip on the generator head, and that's not safe. So if you put fuel in there, next thing you know, it starts leaking. You could have prevented that. So fuel line, very important to pay attention to and to double check. Now, if you did put it away with fuel, I don't care if it's 2 months old, 3 months old, however many months old, go to the gas station, fill up a 5-gallon container or whatever container you're planning on using with fresh gas while you still have time. Dump this in your car or whatever you want to use, because if it's only a couple months old, it's probably okay. You could probably get away with it. Or potentially, if it's still able to be used in a different machine, put it away in a different machine. This is a generator. You don't want to run the risk of having bad fuel. If you pour it in a large container where you can look inside of it, you can double check if there's water. There is water. Obviously it's bad, but I don't care. Replace the fuel unless you specifically remember doing it within the last 30 days. Ethanol fuel is just bad fuel. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. And we want to make sure that when we go to use this, we know nothing is going to stop us from being able to use it. I have a visual for this next one because, well, it's buried, let me tell you, and where the other generator is on the other side. But that's not the point. The point is, check your electrical cables, your extension cords, your splitters, everything else. Check them, make sure they weren't damaged, they're not frayed, they weren't cut, they weren't being crimped in any way. Maybe they were shoved in a door and it had a bad connection. Especially when you have like a breakout cable or whatnot, that can be dangerous. You don't want any type of deformity in your cables. So double check your cables, especially the ones that are going to be providing a good majority bulk of the power you need. And don't get those crappy little cables or Harbor Freight. Get good, legit cables. You don't want this to be connected to something. Obviously, you're the one working on it. So you're going to be the one everyone looks at when their iPhone bursts because they put it on a generator that you worked on. And of course it's going to be an iPhone, because why wouldn't it be? Probably towards the end. This one's, like I said, not super important. It's important, but not super important. Double check your air filter. Your air filter is going to play a pretty key role in the performance of your generator. If it's packed full of crap, if there is a rat's nest in there, that would be kind of extreme, but who knows? You don't know what's in there. Check your air filter, take it out. I would do it on this one, but I just did a tune-up. It's going to look brand new. If it's wet with oil, you probably have a problem, and you should probably look into that problem before you still can. If it's completely dry and just has a little bit of dust, take an air compressor, your lungs, whatever, blow it out, slap it back in, put a new one in if you want to, but you want to make sure it's clean and dry. If you have a pre-filter, make sure it's properly oiled, not overly oiled. We don't need it to be dripping oil, just need a good amount of oil. If it's a foam filter, make sure, yet again, right amount of oil. If you do have a foam filter, squish it, and if it starts to kind of disintegrate, buy a new one. Those foam filters from the outside might look fine, but sometimes when you like compress it, it starts to break down and comes off in little pieces. What will end up happening is, through the pulsing of the engine and sucking air, that's going to start to break away some of those pieces. Potentially could clog your carb. More likely or not, it's going to go inside your engine, cause a whole lot of problems. And yet again, what's going to happen? You're going to have no power. So that air filter, double check, make sure it's good. So I brought out a multimeter because of this reason. You're going to want to make sure your generator makes power. I personally like to take like a heat gun, maybe anything that you're going to be using for a short amount of time. When I tested it last time, someone's about to make coffee, or with a Keurig, I just connected to that. Whatever. Connect something and make sure there's power. Now make sure that's something that doesn't need delicate power. What I mean delicate power is clean power. This is an AC machine. AC power goes up and down. If you're going to look into the output, you want to see a very clean sine wave, because it's alternating its current. If these don't, let's just put it out that way. This one will not. None of these will. The only ones that are going to be super clean are going to be inverters. I'm not going to say you shouldn't run delicate electronics on this, but stuff like heaters, fridges, freezers, stuff like that, not probably going to be an issue. Delicate things, TVs, tablets that are kind of questionable in their power supply, and like the little boxes that you put on there. Don't know about you, but every time I've got to a new cell phone now, you never actually get the box, you just get the cable. Excuse me. And then say you went the cheap route and it's got like a group of like 5 for like $8 on Amazon. Yeah, let's just remember that. Anyway, so check to make sure there's at least power. That's the first thing. 2, want to make sure, if you don't do this step, it probably is not going to be the world's worst thing, but you're going to want to at least take a look and make sure what the output is. This is not the right one. I left the other one that I'd be using usually because it has hertz and the frequency and the volts and everything. I don't have it on this one, but get a multimeter that does have it, or the little machine that I used before in my previous videos, a kilowatt, also works out pretty well. But you're going to want to look and make sure it's not creating too much voltage, and it's not creating too little voltage, and if the engine's running at the right speed. More or less, this is, yet again, a broad spectrum. These, unless because it's not an inverter, you're probably going to be running a little high in voltage with no load. So if you can load this up to about half of what it's supposed to be, which would be kind of ideal, like right now for this one, 5,500 rated watts. don't know what the surge is, but either way, let's say we put 2,000 on there. That's roughly half, a little under. Let's say 3,000. When you check it, it's going to hopefully say about 121, 122 volts, running at roughly 60 hertz, maybe a little higher, maybe a tad bit lower, not much lower. Really shouldn't be any much lower than that. But if you can't test it, then if you're going to be, well, if you can't put a load on it at this particular time, maybe you're, short on time. This is probably going to be closer to 126 to 128 volts, probably around 62.5 hertz. And then when you turn something on, when you do need to use it, and if you hear it drag down a lot, you're probably going to have other issues, which is why I would highly recommend putting this under load when testing it, so you can see what the drop is. Because let's say this started off as 62.5 hertz, and you put a 2,000 watt load on there, it drops down to 57. Well, what's going to happen when you put 5,000? Nothing good. Power is going to be low, it's not going to be stable, and you don't want to go down that road of, bad power output. So let's check the output, make sure it's good to go, and more importantly, make sure that it's not running too high or too low. The last couple of things I want to go over is mainly cosmetic, more or less. Potentially make things a little easier for yourself. The first one being wheels. Does yours have wheels? If it does, do they have to hold air? Are they rigid like this? What type of wheels do you have? If you do need to have air put in the wheels, put some air in your wheels. You don't want to be rolling this around on a flat tire. Is it generally clean? Not saying it's not going to be a deal breaker in the time of need, but when you're looking at it, if you take some time to clean it up a little bit, if you do this routinely, you can pretty much guarantee it's always going to remain clean, and you don't have to worry about just random buildup and junk. So keep an eye out on that. See that little rubber spacer beneath on the bar, kind of holding the power head on? Check those. Do they look cracked? Are they even there? Is it broken? When you turn it on, does it sound like it's rubbing against it? The metal to metal? What's happening right there? If you do see one is broken or cracked, replace it, because it's just going to cause noise, potential damage. You don't want that to happen. So double check all that. Pretty much, with the exception of just a few other specific model little quirks, that's pretty much it. Definitely going to want to make sure that the breakers are off. You probably would have known that already if you follow the other step, but let's say you only tested one outlet. Make sure all the outlets work, knowing the breakers are need to be reset, whatever you need to do. So if you follow this, you follow the tune-up guide, even if you don't use it for another 2 or 3 weeks, but you did it right now, you'll be set. You can pretty much guarantee to yourself with a very high level of confidence that everything's going to be fine. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about having your house with no power. You don't have to worry about having to go rush around looking for one. All you would have to do is wheel this to appropriate location, fill it with fuel, turn it on, lock in, everyone loves you, and that's the end. Well, hopefully this is a quick little video that's going to help someone out during this season. When I'm recording this, it's hurricane season, so sorry, the noise got crazy. Anyway, so you don't have to worry about a whole lot of just problems. So yet again, this is a video about the prepping you can do for the season you're going to need it in, if you have time, of course. But ideally, you would do this pretty much any time of year that you would be needing it. For me, it's winter. I don't know when you need it, but do this. You can save yourself a lot of heartache and headache. Well, this is the end of this one. Follow and continue to watch the next part of this, of the day of. I'm hoping you're going to watch this one first, but if not and you have problems, that video is going to help you out. So watch the second one. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. Follow me on Instagram at SmallEngine101. I'll catch you in the next video. You have a good rest of your night.